What opportunities did you have today where you experienced total silence? When we're in quiet spaces, we can allow ourselves to get bored and begin to hear ourselves think. Initially, when you settle in silence, it may be a trickling in of the to-do list, what's top of mind, before jumping out of that moment to complete the item on the to-do list. Can you sit just a little bit longer in that silence and see what else comes up for you? Silence allows the mind to unspool all of the tightly held preoccupations that we have. And while silence is a gift, it doesn't always feel that way. The first time that I encountered a big, overwhelming silence was a few years ago, deep in Denali National Park. And I was so anxious as a result of that silence. Growing up in suburban areas, spending a good portion of my life in cities, quiet was not something that I was accustomed to. And so that anxious feeling, and it seemed that everything that I had been avoiding bubbled up for me to all of a sudden start to hear those things. And so when you find silence in nature, especially if you're not used to it, it can be unsettling. But I would argue that as long as you are safe, meaning there's no big grizzly bear nearby that you need to give some space to, that it's one of the most powerful exercises that you can do for your mind and for the betterment of your quality of life. There's nothing to do in silence. There's only the need to be, even if it's uncomfortable. And so who are you when all the noise has gone away, faded out into the background? When we're quiet, we can begin to truly listen to others without worrying about the inner dialogue that's getting in the way. I know before I had done some work on myself around both meditation, working on my listening skills, whenever someone else was talking to me, I was listening. There was an excitement, but it wasn't the listening that that person needed because I was too caught up in my own inner dialogue or thinking about problem solving what it was they were trying to say or making interpretations about whatever it was versus really being present with them and hearing them. And so quiet allows us to be fully present with one another. And I know in urban, suburban, even rural areas, it can be especially difficult to find quiet when you're navigating your neighborhood. It can actually be extremely overwhelming navigating certainly busy city streets. I know in New York, oftentimes I have some headphones that I'll put in, not AirPods with music or anything, just simply in-ear plugs, because the inner chatter plus the outer chatter can be really overstimulating. But with enough practice, even if you can't find that quiet in your external world, you can cultivate that silence within you. And it doesn't have to be silence is scary. Instead, it can be silence as supportive, silence as holding the hand of your beloved grandparent, silence as sitting under a beautiful tree. And I know that this is counter to the pressure of our culture, which is very much a need to know. I've always felt pressure to know everything at all times. And something that has been very comforting to me is to admit that I am not a computer. I am a 100% certified human being. And so my brain is not going to work in the sense of the way a computer does. And so I'm not going to have instant access to all the information in the universe, and I'm not going to have the ability to do, very intensive problem solving. So in terms of filling up my brain and my awareness with all of this extra information, I wonder who that serves at the end of the day. It certainly doesn't serve me in terms of my attention span and my ability to focus and be with other people. So, with that thought of kind of hoarding everything that's coming in and constantly seeking the new, what happens when we remove something? How comfortable are you with removing one input, one stream of information that's coming into your mind? What might happen as a result of that? And so when we remove the clutter and welcome this space to explore, to expand in silence, we can begin to see all of the possibilities that are available to us. And that's not something that happens immediately. In silence, like I mentioned before, chances are the first things that are going to come up is, oh my God, I forgot to call that person and wish them a happy birthday. And it's been on the back of your mind, but now there's space and silence for it to come up. There aren't other distractions that are getting in the way of that thought arising. But over time, cultivating that silence within you, and there are a multitude of ways to do that. There's a million different ways to meditate. Walking meditation, drawing, seated meditation, may do yoga nidras, something like that. There's tons of different ways that you can connect with that energy of silence, of flow, and find that there is more space created. And it can be scary to think about all of that space. It's almost similar to when you think about the universe and space at large. And there's no way, while we work to understand it, there's no way that our brain can fully comprehend the size of space. And that's, to me, what's so interesting about silence, is exploring that there is this space before something happens in your life. There is a gap. So what emerges there? So my question to you would be, how are you making room for quiet today? And what opportunities do you have to welcome quiet into your life? Right now, it's actually somewhat loud in my neighborhood. I'm filming this around lunchtime, and I live right at an intersection. And so there's often trucks driving down or people honking horns and yelling. But I'm going to take the time today to slow down, to sit a bit longer, to linger, and welcome some more of that silence into my mind, where there isn't pressure to get anything done. There is simply just the ask to be here in this one moment right now. And so if you've made it this far, thank you for watching. This is roughly 10 minutes of me talking about topics that have really changed my life and I feel are important to share with others. And so I'm 3 days out of 30 days, and I appreciate your time. So I'll see you back here tomorrow for day 4.